Okay, we have a quorum here. It's 12 o'clock, and I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
And we need a metronome while we're doing that.
Yeah, metronome.
All right. Minutes of December
2nd.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I apologize. I'm so sorry for interrupting. A phone rang. I missed the motion and the second.
Who made the motion?
I made the motion, just for
Commissioner Givens.
record purpose.
Commissioner Piner made the second.
Thank you.
Okay, the financial report and payment of the bills. I don't think we have the information from Steve Repo. I think he said he was going to be until next meeting. So Lou, did we just move on without that?
No, you can authorize the disbursement of funds, though.
All right, I'd like to
pay our bills.
Very good. We need disbursement of funds. Do we have a motion to disperse funds for the bills?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that at all? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We're a little bit ahead of schedule. Lou, do you want to move forward with your report?
Yes, I'll address that. On my report today, I want to mention the Southfields agreement. It's an agreement between the town, Grays Hill Development Company, Southside LLC, and Stonewall Capital that it provides for the sale of that property between Grays Hill, Southside, and Stonewall Capital. But it includes a provision where the town would convey certain rights to Greymount Commons, or Greymount Development Company, who owns Greymount Commons, for the extension of major facility fees and adequate water and sewer for that project, in exchange for the town acquiring the property, including well number 4 and the enough property there for the well, and not the well, the water tower too. And I believe that the engineers are working out a detail on that parcel that will not interfere with the sports fields. So I think the board shared its concerns about having that sports field fouled up, and it's not going to be, because we can work things out in order to have both well number 4 and the tower on the sidelines there, and have adequate space for both operations and maintenance without fouling up that sports field. But I would recommend that the board authorize this agreement with between the town, Southside LLC, Grays Hill Development Company, and Stonewall Capital, so we can move forward with this project.
We have a motion to approve the Southfields agreement. We have Earl makes a motion. Do we have a second?
I made the motion.
Commissioner Gibbons? Okay, we'll reverse those two. Do we have any discussion on it? I'd just like to ask John, you reviewed the documentation. How do you feel about it?
I think it's a complete go.
Okay.
It's great. A great agreement for the town and for the community. My advice is let's sign this and let's get going.
Very good. Anyone from the board have any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Lou, you have anything else today?
Well, we have 2 public hearings scheduled, so I guess we should wait for those time frames. The only thing I comment on is that, of course, I met with Dan this morning, and of course I heard from him. So I'm not sure where this storm is going, but Public Works is all ready to go. I mean, they got the salt and they got the plows, they got everything ready. But they haven't had a lot of practice in the last 2 years, but I'm pretty sure that all the skill will come back to them to keep the roads clear and salted, and easy for and safe for the town's residents and business community.
I'm absolutely sure of that also. I'll go ahead with my report. I'm going to announce the holiday decorating contest winners. While we have a few minutes, fourth place with a $40 gift certificate to our local businesses at 107 Bonnie Marie Lane. It goes to Rich Gerwin. Third place with a $60 gift card. Third place winner is 410 Park Circle, and that $60 gift card goes to Bonnie Pacino. Second place in our holiday decorating contest goes a $75 gift card at 602 North Street.
Margaret.
Goes to Peggy Biddle.
Yeah, man, Margaret.
And the first place winner of this year's Elkton's holiday decorating contest goes to 141 South Tartan Street to Kyle Melvin. Thank you for all that participated. And I think Commissioner Broomall said the best thing. There was a lot of beautiful houses out there this year that didn't sign up for the contest. And these and all the 10 or 12 that entered were wonderful. I think that we felt that these were the best four, but there was quite a few other ones out there. So if anyone's listening, please register your house next year and take advantage of these great gift cards.
Yes, Mayor Auld is absolutely correct. Earl and I rode around, and there were a lot of houses that we thought should have been entered. I don't know if they were aware of the contest. Maybe we should redouble our efforts to make the community aware next year.
I would agree with that.
Well, yeah, there were a lot that did not enter the contest, but thankfully, and you see on the news where more people have chosen to decorate their houses because they want to add some light to this COVID-19, which has kept people in. So whatever light that you can transmit, it's great. And I agree with you. They were beautiful.
Yeah, I agree too. Are we going to resume the bulletin that we mail out? We haven't done one, right, for a while.
Yeah, we haven't.
Maybe we can make sure there's a whole page dedicated to that. Like, enter the contest this year.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Very good idea. Okay, it's 12:08. We need to give it 2 more minutes before we start the public hearing. I'd like to ask Commissioner Masmiano, what do you have on your agenda today? You have anything?
Just like I mentioned earlier, I spent the last couple of months actually helping Toys for Tots. The deadline has now passed, but I'm happy to report that I was able to hand in, with the help of our community, our great community, I handed in over 400 toys and right around $5,000 in donations.
Wonderful.
So thanks to everybody.
That is absolutely wonderful. Commissioner Piner, do you have anything to report?
No, I just wanted to let Lou George know that it started snowing at 12:05. It is snowing, Lewis. So Elkton to get a chance to work out their equipment. And I did notice that the light on Delaware Avenue. Has anybody noticed that light over the bridge?
Yeah, we had Delmarva put that up for us. We requested that because there was a pedestrian that was injured there, and the police department asked for additional lighting. So Delmarva, I organized or coordinated with Delmarva to put another light up there.
That was a plus. That happened a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yes.
Yes. But,
May I interject?
No. Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
I know we have a lot of spots around town that we need to worry about, but I can speak for the stop sign that is out in front of Spork and Minnie Haynes, the one by my shop. I stand out there quite often, and you would be amazed to see the people roll through that intersection at 30 miles an hour or more. They don't even hit their brakes, and they go through. I don't know if we need an additional stop sign on the Minnie Haynes side of the street, A blinking light would be costly, but we need to do something, maybe a speed bump as they approach that stop sign, because somebody's really going to get hurt. The other day, I almost saw a bad accident. I'm surprised I haven't seen one already. That's why I wanted to bring that up today, and I almost forgot.
So,
Very good.
anyway, I was just going to say that was a plus for the Delaware Avenue, and I just wanted to say that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Earl. I didn't know you weren't finished.
No, you're good. You're good. That wasn't.
Earl, I'll come back to you when we're at the end of the agenda. So
I'm good. I'm done. Done.
All right, perfect. Okay, it's 12:10. We are having our public hearing on ordinance 3-2020. It's presented for introduction. Lou, do you want to tell us what this is? There's Gene Minner here.
I'm here.
All right, Gene, tell us what we're doing.
An amendment to the zoning ordinance to Article 12, supplementary use regulations, Section 34, counseling in the RO and TC zones. And what we're doing is allowing counseling in the town center zone and the residential office zone by special exception. But it has to be, in order for these uses to be permitted, the offices have to be located either one floor above or one floor below street level. And that's to ensure that in the town center zone and the residential office zone, that the first floor could be used for other retail or commercial uses. And then it limits the number of counselors practicing and requiring adequate off-street parking and indoor waiting area. This was something that was recommended by the zoning administrator, Chip Bromwell.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe he had a discussion with Commissioner Brumel about it. I don't know if Commissioner Brumel has any additional comments.
No, actually, my concerns about opening it up to the town center or in a residential area, office area, were those concerns were answered by Chip. And I do agree with the change in the ordinance. I don't have any reservations at this time.
Okay, this
So
ordinance.
the Elkton Planning Commission recommended approval unanimously at their December 7th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you, Gene. So ordinance 3-2020 is being introduced presented for introduction here today. Does anyone from the board have any questions or comments in regards to this? This is a public hearing, so is there anyone out in the audience today? If you are, unmute your phone and tell me who you are, your name and address if you have any questions or comments on this ordinance 3-2020. Seeing none, hearing none, do we have a motion to accept ordinance 3-2020 just to present it for introduction?
So move.
We have a motion by Commissioner Piner
Second.
and a second by Gene. Any other discussion on, it's only for introduction. Do we have any more comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. This public hearing is closed on ordinance 3-2020. So now ordinance 4-2020 is being presented for introduction. Gene, can you tell us about that one?
Sure. This is a new section 20 under Article 16 signs, and it pertains to variance requests for signs. The language in this is essentially the same as the language for any other variance to the zoning ordinance. It's just a little more, the extraneous information not pertaining to signs is left out, but it's just speaks to the process for obtaining a variance for a sign. Again, this was recommended by the zoning administrator, Chip Bromwell, and this was heard at the Planning Commission meeting of December 7th, 2020, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this amendment.
Does anyone from the board have any questions or comments in regards to this ordinance 4-2020, which is being presented for introduction only? This is a public hearing. Is anyone in the audience on the Zoom meeting? If you are, please unmute your phone and state your name and address if you have any questions about this for introduction. Hearing none. Town of Elkton, do we have a motion to accept ordinance 4-2020? It's being presented for introduction only.
So
I'll make
moved.
a motion.
I got Rob as a motion and a second by, is it Commissioner Givens?
Yes.
Commissioner Givens, any discussion on this at all? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye, motion carries. Okay, our 12:10 public hearing is now closed. It is 12:16. So we're going to go into our next public hearing, which is in regards to resolution R8-2020, the purchase or the purpose of establishing a special taxing district. Lou, are you running with this one?
Yes, I'll open. I believe we have some Unicap people here in case, I hope they were, for any questions. But we've discussed this before, but Resolution R8 essentially establishes a special taxing district for the Southfields project. The only exclusion is the parcel I that's out there on Route 40 near Maloney Road. And there's a small 8-acre section too that's excluded. That's along Augustine Herman Highway. But essentially the other areas that involve family or residential development, commercial development, and other related development, that's if this is passed, would put that into a special taxing district that would provide that the residents and commercial property owners would pay a special tax into a fund, and that fund would be utilized to pay the principal and interest on bonds, special obligation bonds that would be sold in order to raise enough capital money, construction money, to build the infrastructure for this whole project, which is a pretty extensive project. And I believe that Southfields, once the Southfields people, Stonewall Capital and the other developers actually want to pursue having this done at one time, opposed to having it done incrementally on the conventional means where they put up the money up front. So I would suggest that the board give this serious consideration. We've discussed it before, and I'm not sure if you have any additional questions or not. But I would, if you have questions, is there someone from Unicap online here?
Yes, good afternoon. This is Emily Metzler. I'm on the line.
Okay, there, Emily. Emily knows everything there is to know about special taxing districts and I think the Southfields project. So she'd be the one to address any questions. And I appreciate you being here, Emily. We appreciate your service in this matter.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Okay, this is actually our second public hearing on this special taxing district. And we did this so that if there was anyone out there in the public that wanted to gain more information, because this is something we've never done before. And it's the good news is that I see there's no risk to the town. And there's also, my understanding is that currently it doesn't affect anyone except the people that will be moving there, as well as the commercial businesses that will be moving there and so forth. So is there any questions from the board to Unicap before I ask for a motion? Is there any questions from the public that they would like to ask Unicap or ask the mayor and commissioners in regards to resolution R8 establishing this special taxing district? And if there is, please unmute yourself and tell us your name and address. Okay, hearing none. Town of Elkton, do we have a motion to accept Resolution R8 2020 for the purposes of establishing a special taxing district?
That's a move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this at all? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, 4-1, the resolution carries to establish a special taxing district.
The other item remaining is Resolution R9 2020. Essentially, that is a resolution that authorizes the town to sell special obligation bonds, the means by which money would be raised in order to pay for the infrastructure for the Southfields project. R8 enables us to go forward with the special taxing district, to levy taxes, to pay into a special taxing fund and things of that nature. But you actually need to sell bonds in order to get your money. And basically that's what R9 does. And I don't know if Emily wants to add to that or not. I could have oversimplified it, but I think basically that's what it is.
No, you did a great job of describing it, and I think I'm open to answer any questions, but the only other point I would add is, again, just noting that with the authorization of the issuance of bonds, as previously noted, there's not a risk for those bonds to the town.
That's important.
Yeah, I'll comment on that. The special taxing fund that's established where the tax levy, all the money's paid into that fund will retire the debt service and pay principal in those bonds, and not the full taxing authority of the town. Consequently, the town has no liability with respect to the special taxing district.
That's correct.
Thank you. Anyone from the board have any questions or comments on Resolution R9-2020, which would be the purpose of authorizing the issuance of these bonds? This is a public hearing. Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments in regards to this? Please unmute your phone and state your name and address. Seeing none, do we have a motion from the board to accept Resolution R9-2020 for the purpose of authorizing the issuance of special bonds for the town of Elkton, by the town of Elkton?
So moved.
Got a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion from the board?
I just have a quick question. I'm
Yes.
really not sure how to move forward in my vote on this. Since the resolution R8 2020 has been passed, then should I agree to the special obligation bonds? Is that the correct way to proceed?
My comment would be that the special obligation bonds are the means by which money is raised to pay for the infrastructure.
Regardless of this, okay, so it would
Since
be,
R8 is already enacted, then it would be
Right.
appropriate, I think. I don't know why you would
Right.
vote against
Okay.
that. I'd vote for it if I were you, but I'm not
Yeah.
an elected official, so.
well, that's the way I was heading, but I want to make sure that I was you know,
On the right
making the
track.
right track. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. It is now 12:24. This public hearing is closed on the R8 or R9-2020. Thank you. Thank you, Town of Elkton.
I
And
don't
thank
know
you,
if Emily's still somewhere. I don't see her anymore.
I'm here.
But I want to thank you. I'm sure you were waiting for a lot of complex questions, and I hate to disappoint you. But anyway, now that they're passed, that's we'll probably be talking in the future, obviously.
I look forward to it. And you know what? There were some really great questions that were posed prior to today. So I think that there was great due diligence completed, and I thought they were, again, great questions. And I think you're in good hands with your questions and your comments. So you made it easy for me.
Okay, thanks so much, Emily.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, it is next on the agenda. We've got Mr. David Holden, and he's going to give us a Rudy Park update. Is that correct, Lou? Is that what we're doing?
I think he wants to speak to you about Rudy Park and the development of that project.
How you doing,
Hi.
Mr. Holden?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great.
Good. Thanks for the opportunity. I was expecting Cindy Herrera, who's the acting executive director, to join us, and I haven't heard or seen her in the roster here. So I'll some of the parts of the presentation are specific to her, but I can I'll improvise if you'll allow me to. So Rudy Park, where we are is just to give you context. So we partnered with the Elkton Housing Authority in 2016. So it's been over 4 years ago to redevelop the public housing that they had at Main Street, Windsor Village, and Rudy Park. So Main Street and Windsor Village are underway. We started those in April, and we completed the first phase of Windsor. If you've been out there, I think it's a huge improvement to the exteriors of the units. Main Street, we shored up the bridge that goes out from the building out to Main Street. That was in bad condition. And we're finishing the 4th floor there, and we'll be moving people back into the 4th floor in January. So those 2 projects are coming along nicely, and they'll take all of 2021 to complete. As to Rudy Park, we've assembled about $20 million in financing from state, federal, and private sources. Our lender is Wells Fargo Bank, and they've been great to deal with. And right now we've kind of hit a roadblock with HUD, and we need some help from the town with some aspects of it. One thing about the funding that we've assembled, we have to be done by the end of 2022. So we've got a little over 24 months to complete the renovation. We have to, or the redevelopment, and we have to complete it in 2 phases because some of the units are currently occupied. And just to refresh your memory, we're going to totally redevelop Rudy Park. Those buildings are obsolete. They're all coming down. They'll be redeveloped with a similar product that we have built in Cecilton and Northeast and Centerville that has been very successful. And we're also redeveloping the community building, and they'll have the maker space there for the after school programs, as well as other services for the residents and the management staff. So it's, as I mentioned, it's a $20 million endeavor. As you know, the Housing Authority had some turnover in personnel. The executive director that was in place when we started is no longer there. And there's some, I don't want to, I'm not a lawyer, I don't want to be sloppy with my wording, but there's accusations of embezzlement, and there's an ongoing investigation by both federal, by both the HUD and the state of Maryland. And they're at the very end of that investigation. And essentially what they're doing is a forensic accounting to determine the amount of funds that were embezzled. And HUD will be looking to be reimbursed for that. And the good news is the Housing Authority has some funding as a result of the Windsor and Main transaction, as a result of their existing financing, and what they stand to be paid as part of doing the redevelopment project of Rudy Park. So they will be able to reimburse HUD for whatever HUD ultimately determines. And I don't know the amount. I haven't been involved in that. So that forensic accounting, it's taken about 6 months, and that's being submitted this week. And if Cindy was on, she could give you the exact timing, but what I've been told is it's going in this week. But the other issue we have is, as far as the long-term viability of the Elkton Housing Authority, right now there's 2 full-time employees and 1 acting executive director. And the Housing Authority's public housing is going away. It's going to be the Windsor and Main transactions have already occurred. And so its remaining inventory is Rudy Park. And so those 50 units will go away too. So they won't own any housing as public housing. They'll own it in a partnership with my company, with Ingerman. So what HUD has said is, what's the plan long-term for the Housing Authority? Since they don't own any more housing, they will be administering the rental assistance, which is really valuable. It's a great economic tool for the town of Elkton. But that's going to be the Housing Authority's immediate purpose is administering that rental assistance program. So HUD is in a very indirect way asked us to ask the town about giving some direction to the board. I haven't looked at the way the housing authority is incorporated, but my understanding is that they are a creature of the town of Elkton, and the board serves at the mayor and commissioner's pleasure. So lately we haven't had. Oh, I see Cindy's on. So you need to unmute yourself, Cindy.
You're on mute, Lucinda.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Cindy can bring us up to date on where we are with the board's not functioning the way it should be, and we need your help in getting the board fully, the membership of the board fully in place, and meeting, and then making some decisions about what Elkton Housing Authority's future is going to be, bearing in mind that we have these deadlines with the funding that we've assembled from these same state and federal sources. So I don't know how much you heard of my presentation, Cindy, but we kind of got to the part where
Yes.
I think is yours.
Yeah. First of all, let me apologize. I had a mix up on my calendar. This was on my calendar for this evening, not at noon. So my sincerest apologies. And it's nice to meet all of you via Zoom. My name is Cindy Herrera, and our company is currently managing the Elkton Housing Authority under an agreement with the board. So what David gave kind of a background, I'll just fill in a couple pieces. I heard a little bit of it, David, when I was on by phone trying to get on the computer. As far as the inappropriate expenditure of funds, we are in negotiations with HUD on trying to resolve that. And so we did do a forensic accounting, as David had mentioned, and we have come up with a number that we will be presenting to HUD, and then it will be HUD negotiating agreement of that number so that we can make that repayment out of non-federal funds. And we are holding non-federal funds in escrow right now that were the result of the closing on Windsor and Main. It is not sufficient to pay the full amount, but if we can move Rudy Park forward, as well as a second installment on Windsor and Main, we're optimistic that we will be able to produce sufficient non-federal funds to repay the federal funds that need to be repaid.
How much, what is the number?
I really don't want to disclose that yet because we haven't negotiated it and it hasn't been disclosed to our board. So I don't want to publicly disclose the total number yet.
Okay.
We've got to get HUD to concur with that number before we would make it public. It's a negotiation point. We've provided documentation and we're waiting for HUD to concur with that the documentation that we've provided is a sufficient amount. Sufficient documentation to support the number. So that's kind of still in negotiation. So I wouldn't want to publicly disclose that number yet. So that's kind of the status of where the inappropriate expenditure of funds is at. And we've been working diligently to get that resolved. The second issue I think that David was bringing up is that currently the Housing Authority has 3 board members. We're supposed to have 5. We're missing 2 board members that resigned in early summer. And so it would be the city's responsibility, obviously, to appoint board members to the Housing Authority. And I think the larger issue is that this Housing Authority has operated on 150 units of public housing, which obviously 100 of them are already gone because of the closing for Windsor and Main, gone from the perspective of they're no longer under the control of the Housing Authority. And so the Housing Authority no longer receives any funding for those units. The other 50 units remaining at Rudy Park, when that transaction closes, the Housing Authority will no longer have those 50 units and will no longer receive funding. As a result, the Housing Authority will basically consist solely of housing choice vouchers. It'll be 115 housing choice vouchers. The revenue that's generated by the administrative fees that are earned for those housing choice vouchers is a very minimal amount. And it really is not going to support a full operation of the Housing Authority. And so as a result, there needs to be some discussion about on an interim basis, while the Housing Authority, is just at managing 115 vouchers, what is the logical, thing to do for the administration of those 115 vouchers? The Housing Authority will not be able to financially sustain an operation on the revenue from 115 vouchers. There's no housing authorities that are that small that can administer that. If it was, it would be a minimal of a part-time person. And so is it logical to enter into maybe an agreement with the county who might administer the housing authority on an interim basis in order until such time that the housing authority develops other programs or is able to grow itself?
Excuse me, Emily. You said the county. Do you mean the town, not the county?
No, I actually mean, well, it could be, there's a variety of options that are available. The county currently has a voucher program.
Oh, I got you.
And so it is possible. I have examples in other states where I have one housing authority that enters into a management agreement with the other housing authority, and therefore you save on administrative cost. The Elkton Housing Authority continues to exist. The town of Elkton has a housing authority. It's simply managed by a neighboring housing authority. That is a common practice in the housing authority business. So that is one option. I mean, these are options that the state administers a voucher program. So I think there's a state option to administer the vouchers. So I think there's options of other entities that could administer, or the town itself could, take on as part of a housing department and could choose to administer the vouchers. I think that these are all things that the town would need to make a decision on, and then we'd have to approach HUD to negotiate what would be an agreeable solution with HUD. I think all of those options are available. It's also available for the housing authority to continue to function with a part-time person that would simply administer the 115 vouchers. So I think there's a variety of options out there. But since the housing authority is Elkton's housing authority, it's really town council that has to make that decision on what the future of your housing authority might be. And I think Ingerman is looking to some guidance, because they're investing quite a bit in a partnership with the housing authority. The housing authority does have the first right of refusal and an option to purchase these units at the end of the 15-year tax credit compliance period. So the units could come back to the housing authority under various scenarios in 15 years. But you're going to have an interim period in which the housing authority owns no housing units.
Cindy, how do the vouchers work? I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask, what happens if there is no housing authority?
Then the vouchers would be transferred by HUD. HUD would then make the decision where the vouchers would be administered.
Okay.
Because the vouchers ultimately are a HUD program. There's a contract between HUD and the housing authority that governs those vouchers. And so if there is no housing authority, then obviously HUD would have to determine who they would assign those vouchers to, whether it would be the county authority or it would be the state.
But they would be tied to the town of Elkton. They would be tied to those properties.
They would be tied to the properties because they are project. Well, the housing authority, David, let me clarify. The housing authority also has 40 vouchers that are not tied to properties. So your housing authority right now has 40 vouchers that are called tenant-based vouchers. They're to assist 40 families. They're not tied to a property. The remaining vouchers would be tied to the properties that Ingerman is developing. 25 of them are tied to Windsor and Maine, and the other 50 would be tied to Rudy Park, which gets you to your 115 vouchers.
So they wouldn't leave. Just, I wanted to clarify, if for instance, you decided to enter into an agreement with Cecil County to administer them, those vouchers are tied to those properties in the town of Elkton. Mm-hmm. You kept the housing, and we're in a partnership with the Elkton Housing Authority. We're leasing the land from the Elkton Housing Authority.
Correct.
So they have we always contemplated a long-term role. We just didn't contemplate this turn of events with the embezzlement and what's going on.
Inappropriate expenditure of funds.
Okay.
Okay.
I qualified.
Let's be clear on what exactly occurred. Okay.
And then after 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm going to run a scenario, and we're going to have to get advice from our council. But if there was no housing authority, and then your agreement with that now no longer a housing authority, the properties then go to the Ingerman Group.
They would remain with Ingerman, correct. If the housing authority does not exercise a right of refusal or a purchase option, then the properties simply remain with the current developer.
And under the condition that they're restricted as affordable
Yes,
housing. So they
correct.
would, even though whether the housing authority was involved or not, they would remain as affordable housing for the life of it's a 40-year obligation. So that wouldn't change whether the housing authority exercised its option or was there or not there. That's a state requirement that binds the use of these properties.
I would say maybe some other members of the board might be better educated on this than I am, but I've never figured out what we've really done with the housing authority other than to appoint people onto the board. And I don't know where they fall at underneath our charter or under our control per se.
They aren't. The
They're
housing
not.
authority is a separate legal entity. The only relationship the town has with the authority, the Elkton Housing Authority, is to appoint members of that board. That's all. They're not part of our charter or our code.
That's
So they're
correct.
a separate legal entity.
Yeah, housing authorities are quasi-governmental entities under state statute. They are created because a municipality creates them. So the housing authority was created by resolution of the town. Okay, that's how the housing authority was initially created. And so you created the housing authority, and your obligation is to appoint the governing body of the authority. And then what the powers of the housing authority are based on state statutes, but the funding comes through contracts with the federal government, with HUD, and that's how the housing authority is funded. It is funded directly by the federal government under these contracts. So the public housing, when it was originally built, Windsor and Maine, as well as Rudy Park, the housing authority received a grant from HUD that allowed them to build that housing. And then they receive annual operating grants that provide funding to operate the housing. Okay. And what HUD has done in recent years, because we also received capital grants to deal with the maintenance or the capital improvements of the property. Recognizing that Congress has not allocated sufficient funding to deal with the capital expenses needed, HUD entered into various initiatives that have housing authorities convert their public housing, much as what we're doing with Ingerman right now, where basically you convert the public housing to project-based vouchers, which allows you to go out and secure private capital to redevelop that housing. So in essence, and it's done under a variety of programs. Windsor and Maine was done under something called RAD. Rudy Park is being done under a different program, but HUD has 3 or 4 different options now in which housing authorities convert public housing to project-based vouchers so that you can go out into the market and secure private capital to improve that. And that's what's transpired here in Elkton. It was in bad condition. It needed to be improved. And so the only way to do that was through these mechanisms.
Would the board be okay if we put this task on Lewis to give us a recommendation on the direction we should go?
I think that would be a good idea. And myself, in the 90s, I served on the housing authority for about 5 years. And certainly you don't really have any power. It's just almost like a check and balance. They tell you what's going on and you give recommendations and things like that. Even when I served on the board there, we had an executive director that was like the other one, done unscrupulous things, and we had no say so. But yeah, Lords can look at the recommendations and get some feedback on what needs to be done.
Thank you, Charlie.
Can I?
Yeah.
I have a question. Who is then responsible for the short and long-term maintenance of the properties?
The housing authority is responsible?
Okay, so they basically have been overseeing whatever maintenance is needed on a daily basis.
Yes, under the contract with HUD, there's a responsibility for the housing authority to maintain those properties.
Okay.
But going forward, it would be like Windsor and Maine now, that Ingerman's responsible for the maintenance there.
Right, the housing, let me clarify, the Housing Authority no longer owns Windsor and Main. It was sold to a new entity in which Ingerman is the managing partner for that entity. So Windsor and Main is now currently controlled by Ingerman Development. Rudy Park remains with the Housing Authority, but the intent is to also have it be controlled by Ingerman.
And that's good because that way all three will be under the same umbrella.
Correct.
Yes. Right.
Could I ask a question, Cindy?
Yes, sir.
Currently, the Elkton Housing Authority that it only has control over 50 units now until they're done, has 3 members on the board, and there should be 5, as you mentioned. What does that board do now, or what will it do once those Rudy Park goes over to Ingerman, and all they do is control vouchers? What would those 5 people do if there were 5 people on that board?
They would continue to oversee the Housing Authority, even though its only operating program at the moment would be the voucher program. You know, housing authorities have the ability to do other things under state law, like they could go out and develop other housing. In this particular case, it's such a small authority, the capacity isn't there. Our commitment is a 1-year commitment to help them get things straightened out. But basically, you know, once the Housing Authority no longer owns any property, they would still be responsible for the voucher program. They still have obligations to HUD under the contract with HUD for the voucher program. So that board would still oversee the Housing Authority's operations of the voucher program.
What would happen if the county accepted managing those vouchers?
Then the Housing Authority board would, you know, it would be up to the town, but basically you would dissolve the Housing Authority board. There'd be no reason for you to have a board any longer.
And certainly that would be good.
Or you could continue to have your Housing Authority, you'd continue to have a board, but they'd have no active programs to oversee.
All right, but would having an Elkton Housing Authority in place, would that be a wise decision for future property development?
I think that the answer could be yes. Housing authorities can do things that towns can't do under state statute. The issue becomes when you don't have funding, how do you fund the ability of the Housing Authority to develop new housing and new programs? And so that becomes, now, Elkton Housing Authority does have some funds. In the agreements with Ingerman, there will be some additional funds that do come to the Housing Authority. So even after we repay the inappropriate expenditures back to HUD, the Housing Authority will still retain some non-federal cash that would allow it to be able to have some activity if that's what they chose to do.
Okay, Mayor, would something like this be feasible for in the future if we wanted to address properties like in Hollingsworth Manor?
I don't know if that would, I don't know. I can't answer that.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, you know, if it would be a tool for us
Yes.
to use.
Yes, I mean, a housing authority can be that's why they exist all over the country, is that they're very, very good tools to use to develop affordable housing, to deal with blighted housing. In fact, many housing authorities started because of blight. And so, housing authorities can be very effective tools. Unfortunately, your housing authority fell into some problems and it has not been able to be quite as effective. So, they can be effective tools. You can do that in a variety of ways. So that's certainly something the town wants to consider. Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of where my mind is going on consideration of keeping it or dissolving it. But it was just a little bit of food for thought there.
But there's a lot of places that have the housing authority, but they have taken away from the authority and going to town managers or whatever manager, whether you're in the city or something like that. Because obviously a lot of times when you select a board to serve in your capacity, the town of Elkton, you don't have any defined roles. You're just there, you go to meetings, you don't do anything. And that's why I personally would look to go in another direction rather than an authority, like some type of manager or something like that, who can really have a personal relationship with what's going on. Again, my opinion, because I've served there, and I, after being there, I really didn't have a purpose.
I think Mr. Givens, you hit it on the head. The key is, while the housing authority is a separate legal entity, the town is responsible for that housing authority. You created it and you appoint their board. Therefore, if there are issues with the housing authority, ultimately HUD comes to the town. When housing authorities become designated as troubled, HUD approaches the local government and says, you need a plan to deal with your housing authority. So that the town, while you don't have legal oversight, you have responsibility because you created it and you appoint that board. And so the town ultimately, has to have the key to having an effective housing authority is having an effective board that's appointed by the town. So I think that Mr. Gibbons hit that. And if you don't do that, the other options are, there are many housing authorities that are departments of towns as well. I mean, there's all kinds of structures across the country as to how housing authorities function.
Well, can we break this into two? I think there's timing around the two different issues. The immediate concern is giving HUD satisfaction on how the
Yes.
rental assistance is going to be administered. And that could be, if you were comfortable at, a short-term arrangement with Cecil County will give you time to decide what you want the Elkton Housing Authority to be. And then if you want to bring it back in and administer the vouchers, you could do that, in a year or two. Or if you decide you don't want to maintain the housing authority, you let it go. But you will have, if we could break it into you don't have to decide the fate of the Elkton Housing Authority, but we do have to decide how to get Rudy Park moving forward because we have these deadlines around this federal funding.
That's so true, because Rudy Park, I drive through there often. It's like a ghost town up there, and certainly you want to see some improvement up there, of course. And then you also talk about the recreational center. I think that's a good idea and approach that you're making to make that educational. But another question I wanted to ask: there's property behind the Rudy Park, and one time it was used as a park. I don't know what intent it is going forward. What's going to happen to that property that sits behind? Is there an answer?
Yeah, that's part of the Rudy Park property, and that has some recreational equipment back there, and we're going to replace some of it and redo some of it. I think there's a basketball court back there, but yeah, that'll be part of that'll be maintained as part of Rudy Park. As far as the landscaping and the equipment, but yeah, that'll continue.
That'd be great if you can make it inviting for people to go back there and participate. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll get some more lighting and some pathways, but yeah, that'll continue to serve as recreation. I understood that was popular with the kids, and we plan to keep it.
That's good.
Very good.
I only have one comment.
Yep.
From listening to this, I just don't want to fall into this situation that we had out in Buttonwood. I know this is two different things. The homeowners association and the HOA, that's two different things. I understand that. But we fell into something we call ourselves helping out because the homeowners association fell apart, and then we stepped in to help. And then before you know it, the town was responsible for mostly everything out there at Buttonwood. You understand what I'm saying, right? So what I'm saying is, as far as Mr. David, as an operational owner of the property, or whatever you want to call it, property management, this should fall on the management of the property, not the town, because somehow or another I feel as though we're going to be lured into the same situation as a HOA. Now, that's my opinion. If I'm wrong, I just feel as though, as long as I've been on the board, every time someone came to me with an issue from the housing authority, I had no say. I couldn't help them. I couldn't do anything because we appointed the 5 board members. The 5 board members had all the power in the world to deal with every issue. They knew the situations. We had no clue what they was talking about. But yet people came to us for help, and I had no clue to know which way to help them. To go into the housing authority manager at the time, I mentioned it to him, and I was shut down because there was nothing I could do. So my point is, if we get involved with this, I don't want this to be a town situation just because we appointed a board member. That's my opinion.
Very good. Thanks, Earl. I think what we'll do is, Lou, give us a recommendation and let's try to move forward on these voucher situation for the group. And I think we can get a response pretty quick. Quite frankly, my opinion is I say turn them over to the county. I've always felt that we should have turned them over to the county. I never really been a big fan myself, but I've always felt it's been a repeat of services myself. But take a look at it, Lou, and make a recommendation to us if you would.
What from David Holdman? I think he's at I don't know if it's a stalemate with HUD or not, or Rudy Park. What's the town need to do to help that specifically?
If we could get the board, a full board, a full 5-member board in place and have them take the actions we need them to take as far as the different approvals that we need. And then we need to get back to HUD with a plan. And I think Cindy's prepared to present a plan based on the board's direction. So that's step 2. Once we get a board in place, then have the board act quickly and say, it's the town's wish that the Elkton Housing Authority, transfer its management of the vouchers to Cecil County. And then HUD will say they'd probably be happy with that, because I think, Cecil County already has a staff program that's up and running. And that could, like I said, that could be temporary. That could be a 5-year arrangement and you could renew it periodically if, but I think that's what we need. We need a board, and we need that board to take action as far as the housing authority's future.
So you need 2 more people.
Yes.
2 more people on that board.
We'll have you 2 people.
That'd be wonderful. And then those people, if they would be asked to move quickly with these decisions we need to make, I'd be happy to meet with them. I'm sure Cindy could talk to them as well.
Perfect.
Right.
I think we'll be able to give you a direction.
Great. Thank you all very much. And
Thank you.
Thank you. You're wonderful.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
thank you.
Nice to meet
My
you.
apologies. Nice to meet you. Look forward to
Pleasure.
meeting in person someday.
That would be
All
nice.
right. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Okay, Commissioner Givens, you have anything for the good of the board?
I believe I do. I can't remember. I'm getting like Earl Piner.
Yes, that's right.
Just kidding.
You'd be too smart for that.
As most of you know, for the past 30 years, we've had the Martin Luther King celebration. We had so many last year, we had to move it to 5 Rivers Church. And most of you have been there before, and we used to have the breakfast and then the program. You were there maybe just a couple of hours, 1 hour for the breakfast. But with the COVID-19, that has changed things, and we're going to have a webinar this time. Everything's going to be done there. I believe members of my church should have contacted each of you with a save the date, and with the save the date, they should have contacted you recently so they could get a picture of you, because when guests are introduced, they're going to show you waving or doing what have you. So have any of you received that yet?
Yes, I have.
I've done it. I'm done.
Oh, okay, that's good.
I have
So, I
to.
mean, it went out to the police, the police department, some members, the town administrator, as well as the cross section of people in Cecil County. So I just want to remind you, if you would, in the program, it'll only be 1 hour. And if you have time on the 18th, zoom in.
It only takes you a minute to click on and do your part.
Well,
Like,
Today was the last day of it, and it was in conflict with a sales meeting I had this morning and into this.
They didn't get you?
They haven't got me yet.
I'll
No.
make sure that happened, because they got the county executive this morning, so they're getting the best people for last, I guess.
I guess I'm pretty open all day tomorrow or later on today. If
I'll take care of that.
Thank you.
I need
Charles.
to do that as well.
Okay.
and Charles, could you make sure we get a reminder of when the event's going to come?
They're supposed to send that out as well. There's a team of people doing that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Gene, do you have anything for the good of the town of Elkton?
The only thing I have is I just cannot believe it's December 16th already. And we're not going to meet again until after the holiday. So I wanted to wish everybody Merry Christmas. I hope you all enjoy, your time off and the holidays, and that you're all safe and happy.
Thank you, Jean. Same back at you.
Thanks.
Okay, we're done with the commissioner reports. This is the time that we open up the floor for the public to come up with any comments for the good of the town. So I'm looking at, I think, Mr. Lemon's phone. Mr. Lemon, do you have anything for the good of the town of Elkton today? You were on, Mr. Lemon. Mr. Lemon is off.
Yeah.
Okay, we have 415. You have anything for the good of the town of Elkton?
Hi, just with Pat Opal. Just want to wish the commissioners and the mayor a happy new year and Merry Christmas, and hopefully see some of you downtown on Friday night for the last event before the Christmas holiday.
Pat, I've actually got some good news for you.
Okay, what is it?
I got a financial commitment of close to $50,000 for Elk Landing from some private developers that they're going to be doing a lot of work with the town of Elkton, and they asked where can they help the town of Elkton out the most, and near and dear to my heart is Elk Landing.
Oh my God.
So
what are you trying to do? You're going to give me a heart attack.
So I believe that we're going to be able, the goal is to get that stone house finished.
Yeah, I was talking about it to Josh last week. The fireplaces are starting to crumble inside, and Bathon pointed out that there was a bulge in the back wall on the Elk Creek side.
Yep.
And I don't know what it would take to fix that, because you have to go in the basement to see it. And I won't go in that basement.
I have negotiated that Mr. Bathon, I think, is going to do that at no charge.
Oh, fantastic. Really?
Well, wow. I'm just throwing that out there now. I've talked to him about it, and we're going to see what he can do.
Oh, God, I just appreciate this so much. I mean, we've been worried because we're closed down. We can't hold fundraisers, but we're like everybody else. Our bills don't stop.
The bulge was caused by a snake, is my understanding.
Well, you know what? It wouldn't surprise me. I think they ganged up and just beat on the wall. I won't go down there.
It's a snake hole.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else, Pat?
No, that's it. Thank you very much. And if you could get us a list of the donors.
I think they're going to make a nice presentation to you. I'm coordinating it now.
Oh, okay, because I want to make sure we get some type of a recognition letter out to them.
Yep.
Thank you, Pat.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, the next we have 4109. Anything for the good of the town of Elkton? And I believe the Samsung phone was that was Jean, I think. No.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, I don't think Mr. Bill Carroll has anything. William, you don't have anything today. You'll call me later, I'm sure.
Yeah, I usually stay quiet in these meetings. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Chief, do you have anything to say?
Took me a minute to unmute. No, I don't really have anything to say. Just want to thank everyone for the generosity of the upcoming holidays for our staff. We do appreciate it. Stay safe.
Thank you so much. Okay, seeing none, hearing none. It is now 1:04. This meeting is adjourned.